Hello and welcome to L Space Books. My name is Tristan, and today I thought we would do a review of Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. So, Tomorrow Times 3, as it's affectionately called, is about two friends as they embark on their professional journey designing video games in the early 90s. Hi Wally, are you going to help me do the review? Would you like to join in the fun? So Sam is a mixed race boy who has whose mother is Korean and father is Jewish. His mother tragically died in a car accident, which also resulted in the permanent mangling of Sam's foot, which would lead to a permanent lifelong disability, which is part of his overall struggle in the novel. On the other hand, Sadie is from an upper-class Jewish family, and the two of them meet kind of under unlikely circumstances in a hospital video game room. Sadie's sister is undergoing treatment for a rare kind of leukemia. They both bond over their love of video games, and they both agree that video games are a great way to escape the pains and stressors of their real lives. Do you want to keep helping, or do you want to go do something else? Fast forward to their adult years, they are both getting degrees in Boston. Sadie is at MIT, Sam is at Harvard, both pursuing various aspects of game development. They randomly find each other in the Harvard subway station, and they try to rekindle their long-lost friendship. Sadie gives Sam a sample game that she's prepared for a video game class that she is taking. He plays it, loves it, and they get in contact to try to design a video game together. And the rest of the book takes place over their career as they found a video game studio and go through the trials and tribulations of owning and running a video game studio. So the book goes through 10 different sections of their story, starting from when they meet each other in the hospital all the way until the conclusion of the story, which I, of course, will not spoil for you now. Each section plays with the style of narration that it uses. One of them uses second person, for example, and another one tells a story entirely from the perspective of their video game avatars in a game that both Sam and Sadie are playing. The story has a lot of really beautiful things to say about art and the process of creation and the value of video games as art. And it also talks a lot about the place of video games in our... Douglas, what are you doing? This story talks a lot about the place of video games in the artistic canon and viewing them as works of art. If you think of games such as Child of Light or Assassin's Creed or Ori and the Blind Forest, you know that games are indeed artistic. And this book. So if you're familiar with games like Child of Light and Ori and the Blind Forest, you know full well that games can be works of art. And through a discussion of each of the games that this studio creates, Unfair Games is what their studio is called, through a discussion of each of the games that they create, they really do go into the artistic process and the creative work that they put into creating these games and putting them out into the public. And the thing that I really like about this book is that we oftentimes think of video games as a very modern conception and one that does not have a lot of connection to more classic literature or classic source material, etc. But this game shows that is definitely not the case. One of the games that Sadie comes up with is one that is based on Emily Dickinson's poetry. They have another one that is based on Shakespearean theater. And throughout all of this, there is a through line of classic art and classic art within a modern context. And that is one thing that I really like about this book, is because it shows that no matter how disparate a piece of art might seem, there is a through line into our modern consumption, into our modern creative spaces. One of the first game that they create is a game called Ichigo, which is modeled very much after the style of Hokusai, which has the Great Wave off Kanagawa. It's a very famous woodblock painting that is spectacular, and it's one of my favorites. And if you think about a game like Okami, that one also has the same sort of woodblock painting style. So even though we know now that video games don't rot your brain, we can also see that they are indeed ways of paying homage to classic works of art as they often do. Additionally, this is also a story about friendship between Sadie and Sam and the very rocky relationship that the two of them have over the course of their career. The two of them both deal with very intense personal struggles. Sadie has severe depression. Sam, of course, is disabled. And I felt that both of these challenges between the two of them were very well fleshed out and very well explored. Sadie's depression felt very relatable, and the way that the narrator went into her perspective of explaining and expressing her depressive episodes felt very relatable to somebody like myself who does struggle with depression. Now, I do not have a physical disability, but I have heard from people who do have physical disabilities that Sam's representation as a physically disabled person is very well done and very well explored. So if you're looking for a book that talks a lot about mental illness and also disability representation, this is definitely a good one to pick up. One thing that I like about this book is that it really is loyal to its theme of friendship. There is a love story with one of the other characters in the book, but Sam and Sadie never fall in love. They only ever stay as friends, which I personally really like. I love the concept of friendship being the most powerful bond that you can have with somebody, and I love the fact that they don't stray into this friends to lovers thing. I really appreciate that they just stayed friends, because one of the things that they say in the book is that everybody can find somebody to love. What happens on so much more of a rare basis is somebody with whom you can create, with whom you can sit down and work together to create something beautiful and new. And that's something that this book does really well. As we follow Unfair Games and its progress and the games that it puts out, we see different games that both Sam and Sadie work on, as well as games that Sam and Sadie work on separately. And the ones that tend to have the most success, or at least the ones that have the most unique feel to them, are the ones that they create together, which of course is true for the Ichigo series that they create together, which ends up having a couple sequels, etc. And through that, I really like the message that they're sending, that things can get better when people work together, and generally things are better off with your friends than without them. Now, this book definitely does not pull any punches, and it takes a very dark turn towards about the end of the second third of the book, where a really, really horrible tragedy happens to the offices of Unfair Games. And this is my second time reading this book, and I found myself feeling so much more anxious and so much more just emotionally destroyed at what happened, because the first time I read this book, I loved the characters so much. I was not expecting it to happen at all. And this time, when I was expecting it, I was still falling in love with these characters. And when that happened to them, I felt so much more devastated when it did happen. And the chapter called NPC is probably one of the most devastating and also beautifully written. It's written second person. It's a really fascinating way to discuss and to experience what's happening, because it's really tragic what happens in this section, and the way that the narration changes up really takes you out of the rest of the story to really highlight the tragedy that is happening. And I thought that Zevin was very, very smart in the way that she crafted this section that just really makes you feel every emotion that you should feel in this situation. This book also shows the healing power of video games in that they can help people process and cope with their grief. The discussion around grief in this book is really masterfully done. It shows that, there's no one way that grief can be processed, and everybody does it differently, and it definitely destroys people, and it can definitely destroy people, as it does to a couple of these characters. Ouch, Wally. You know that I'm trying to do something. And that's why you want attention, right? Yeah, I know. Okay, let's try to finish this. So the section on grief, of course, is called Pioneers, and I think that that's such a wonderful name for that section, because anytime that you embark on a grief journey, you are kind of the pioneer of that territory. You're the only one who has ever been on that journey, and nobody has been on it before you. There is no universal grief experience. Every grief experience is unique, and you have to pioneer it on your own. And I think the way that she explores that in the section called Pioneers is really, really well done. The first time I read this book, I had a really hard time connecting to the Pioneers section, but now that I knew that it was coming on the second reread, I connect to it so much more, and it actually became my favorite section out of the entire book. I thought that it was the most interesting and the most well-crafted and most intentionally conceived. He is causing a lot of trouble. He is causing a lot of problems, Wally. Yes, I know. Yes, you are a troublemaker. You are 4 months old now. And you just need all of the attention all the time. Otherwise, you come and bite my toes. Okay, say hello. Say hello to YouTube, Wally. Yeah, say hi. Okay, this book ends kind of in the same way that it begins. And I will give sort of a pseudo spoiler, but we can kind of, when I tell you about the fact that it's the trials and tribulations of a friendship, you can guess that there's going to be a falling out. And the end of the book is showing you that true friendships, ones that are truly built on love and trust and all of those things, can always be renewed. And that's where the end of the book kind of leaves us. And that's ultimately the message of the book, is that friendship can conquer all things. Additionally, as an artist, I like to write, and this book, I had forgotten how much I had felt validated by this book. There's a section, they continually talk about the process of failure and the fact that when you first start out creating something, you're never ever going to create the things that you want to create to the same level and standard that you want to create them. But what you need to keep doing is keep trying and keep making things, because eventually you will get better and you will be good enough in the end to be up to the standard that you want it to be at. And so overall, it's a very validating book, especially for somebody who's artistically inclined. Douglas, would you like to be in the video too? Come here, Douglas. Come on. Okay, the other one is much less needy. But yeah, this book definitely remains one of my favorites. I gave it an easy 5 stars. I don't really like the whole star situation, the star rating situation, but that's what I gave it. I'm really glad that I reread it. It's definitely worth rereading, and it just opened up so many more interesting things as things kept going, especially that section on the Pioneers, as well as the NPC chapter. I thought that one was really cool, reading that one again. But even though it was, of course, tragic. Did you screw up my lighting, guys? You did. I don't know if they screwed up the lighting, but who knows. So I had one final thought on Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. And that was the fact that it has a really good discussion, in my opinion, on this idea of cultural appropriation and kind of what it means to write about a culture that is not your own. And I wanted just to read one of the passages that talks directly about it that I really liked. That gave me a lot of good thoughts. So let me just go ahead and read that right now. The alternative to appropriation is a world where white European people make art about white European people, with only white European references in it. Swap African or Asian or Latin or whatever culture you want for European. A world where everyone is blind and deaf to any culture or experiences that is not their own. I hate that world, don't you? I'm terrified of that world, and I don't want to live in that world, and as a mixed-race person, I literally don't exist in it. My dad, who I barely knew, was Jewish. My mom was American-born Korean. I was raised by Korean immigrant grandparents in Koreatown, Los Angeles. And as any mixed-race person will tell you, to be half of two things is to be whole of nothing. And by the way, I don't own or have a particular rich understanding of the references of Jewishness or Koreanness because I happen to be those things. But if Ichigo had been fucking Korean, it wouldn't be a problem for you, I guess. So, of course, this is from Sam's perspective, who is half Korean, half Jewish, and talking about Ichigo, which is a Japanese-inspired game. And this question is one that I think about a lot because, obviously, they're writing fiction and they're creating fictional art and whatever. And I always like to think about this idea of creating fiction from a perspective that's not your own. I don't really have a good, solid conclusion that I've drawn about this issue. It's just one that I think about often. And this particular passage in Tomorrow gave me a lot of things to think about, especially as it came from an author of mixed race. I think that it is especially powerful coming from her perspective. Anyway, so that's the last thing that I wanted to share. But this book definitely has a lot of really interesting discussions just like that about a variety of other subjects. So anyway, back to the rest of the review. So that is my review of Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. I hope that you found that this review was helpful if you were thinking about picking it up. I definitely recommend the book. It's definitely one of my favorites, and I really like the way that it's written and everything. Have you read this book? What did you think? What did you think about the Pioneers section? Because I know that one is one that people oftentimes have a hard time connecting with. Let me know what you think in the comments, and of course, as always, like and subscribe if you're new. I'm really glad that you're here, and even though I'm very new still to BookTube, and I'm still my videos are still not quite up to the same standard that I want them to be at, of course, I'm going to keep creating, because as the book tells us, even if I fail this time, next time I'm going to fail better. Alright guys, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you again next time. Bye.